Hello, everyone. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm in the Client Training and Education Department here at TradeStation, and it is a pleasure to be doing these series, The Art of TradeStation. This one today is an introduction to Easy Language. We're going to talk about a proprietary language that exists in TradeStation that allows you to create custom studies and custom strategies. So the idea is that we're going to go through a series of exercises that will show us what is the potential with Easy Language and what we can do, taking an idea from its very basic concepts all the way to a study and then create it into a strategy. So it's going to be a series of exercises that will demonstrate the potential of TradeStation when you garner a little bit of Easy Language knowledge. But before we get started, here's some disclosures. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about here today is for demonstration purposes only. It is not a recommendation of TradeStation. Active trading is not suitable for everyone, and especially when it's done online. If you'd like to read more about these disclosures, please go to the TradeStation website and scroll to the bottom of the page, and you'll find all the disclosures linked there. First, let's talk about Easy Language and what it is. Easy Language is, as I said earlier, it's proprietary to TradeStation. In order for you to use Easy Language, you do have to be inside the platform. But it's a combination of words, operators. I'm just reading here from the slide. Punctuation used to create rules or instructions based on market data, which TradeStation follows to perform one or more analytical tasks. To give you more like a paraphrased version of this definition, Easy Language is precisely that. We're going to put words together to create rules or instructions that TradeStation is going to follow. Now, there's different actions or different tasks that TradeStation can perform, whether it is drawing a line on a chart, whether it is marking a specific candle or a specific bar based on a condition or a filter that has been met, or maybe a strategy that generates an order when a condition is met. So that is what Easy Language allows us to do. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of using Easy Language. First of all, you're going to be able to translate your trading ideas into analysis techniques and strategies in Easy Language. You know, sometimes you think about something that you want to do in TradeStation. The only way that you can tell that something to TradeStation is by using Easy Language. So learning a little bit of Easy Language does that for you. It allows you to tell TradeStation what to do, and TradeStation will be able to follow those instructions. You can also edit and modify everything that comes built in into TradeStation. Every study, every strategy that is supplied with the platform is already written in Easy Language. So learning a little bit of Easy Language allows you to go in there and modify the calculation of any of these studies or any of these strategies. Also, you'll be able to read and understand any Easy Language document that is out there. Also, an understanding on how the studies work and how the strategies are calculated gives you an advantage when it comes to creating your own. We need to understand what data is available for you to use when you start using Easy Language. First of all, we all are familiar with a bar. You know, the one on the left is an open, high, low, close bar. The one on the right is a candlestick. But the price points on the bars are the same. We have the open, the high, the low, and the close. You can use those price points in Easy Language, and I'm going to show you examples on how you can do that. We also have access to the time and the date. If you want to access volume, we have the number of shares and the number of ticks on every single bar. We also have options related data for those that want to create studies based on options like implied volatility, options volume, options open interest, etc. One of the good things about TradeStation is that all the data is managed and maintained by TradeStation. So you don't have to create these databases of information because TradeStation does that for you. You just have to tap on that database and request the data that you're looking for. One thing to keep in mind is that when you create any studies or any strategies, they will start calculating on the very first bar of the chart. So it goes historically, finds the very first bar, and then it's going to start calculating on each bar after that until it reaches the most current bar where your analysis techniques and your strategies are going to calculate tick by tick. So let's go ahead and do our first exercise. We're going to create an indicator, which is going to plot a line representing the real body of each candle. The real body will oscillate, or this value will oscillate between positive and negative values. For those that are familiar with the candlestick concept, the real body of a candle is the difference between the open and the close. So let's say, for example, we're looking at that candle right there on that slide. The candle opened at 16 and it closed at 12. So the real body would be the difference between those two prices, meaning that the real body is 16 minus 12, or in this case, 4. But in reality, when we look at candlesticks, or when we start analyzing candles, we know that the candlestick that's right there on that slide is a down candle, meaning that it's a negative value. In this case, we want the real body to be represented with a negative number. So for the formula, we really want to inverse, the open and the close to be, so that the calculation generates a negative number on a down candle and a positive number on an up candle. The only way that that's going to happen is by subtracting the open from the close, or we can say close minus the open. Here's my TradeStation. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create a chart. Let me open up a chart here. All right, so let me resize this chart so it fills more of the screen. Okay, let me increase the bar spacing. We have a lot of candles here. This is the British pound against the Japanese yen. That's fine. You can use any symbol you want. I mean, the studies we're going to create are not asset specific, are pretty much based on a very simple idea using real body. So let's measure the distance between the open and the close for each one of these candles. Let's go ahead and create our first indicator. I'm going to go to Trading Apps up here and click on the EasyLanguage application. This will open up what we call the TradeStation development environment. This is where all the EasyLanguage happens. We're going to go to the file menu, hover over New, and we're going to click on Indicator. We give our indicator a name. I'm going to start my name with an exclamation mark. Whenever I create custom studies in my EasyLanguage, I always start the name with an exclamation mark first, because it'll sort the indicator to the top. When you are sorting things in alphabetical order, exclamation gets sorted to the top. And another reason is because I can find my own custom studies all together. If you start your studies and you name your studies, your custom studies, with a prefix, whatever, it's a character or your initials, it'll be much easier to find your custom studies all together, rather than using just a random name, which will be sorted in alphabetical order with the rest, and then you have a hard time finding what is yours and what is built into the platform. So in this case, I'm going to do an exclamation, and I'm going to call this real body. Right here at the bottom, I just want to point out that there are templates that you can use. For this demonstration, I'm not going to use any templates, so I'm just going to leave this in none. That way, I just have an empty document, no other information. I'll click OK, and you can see that at the top I have a tab named exclamation real body, so I'm ready to start typing my code. And before I do, I'm going to turn my font a little bit bigger so that I can see better, or you can see it better in this demonstration. If I start typing the word hello, you can see that it's rather small. So let me go here to the tools menu, and this is something that you can also do in your development environment. If you feel like the font is a little bit too small, go to the tools menu right here on the top and go to options. I'm going to go to the code font, and I'm going to make my font 14 and bold. So hopefully that's good. Let me go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. I can go a little bit bigger. I'm going to go to 20. Okay. That way you can see it better. I'm going to remove the word hello because hello is not a word that EasyLanguage recognizes, but EasyLanguage does recognize certain words. Like, for example, EasyLanguage recognizes the word close. And if I type in the word close, I want you to notice that the word turns blue. Whenever a word that you're typing turns a specific color, it's because EasyLanguage recognizes what it is. And using the word close means that it's going to look at the candle and it's going to look at the price or the closing price of that candle. That is what close means. And that's what we're going to use in our calculation. We said earlier that the formula that we want is the close minus the open. And you can use, regular formulas like you would do in Excel. You use the same mathematical operators. You use a dash for a subtraction. You use the plus sign for adding. We use the asterisk for multiplication, and you use the slash for division. But this is our formula. What we're going to do next is we're gonna store that into what programmers call a variable. A variable is useful because when you use a variable, you're putting a complex calculation inside a name. And everywhere in your code where you need that complex calculation, you just have to name the variable and you don't have to retype your formula. So let's go ahead and type in value 1 is going to be equal close minus the open. Value 1 is one of those built-in words to the language that you can use at any time. Value 1 is going to work as our variable. And anytime I want to calculate close minus the open, I just have to reference value 1. Okay, so hopefully everyone is with me at the moment. Every language has certain punctuation, and you have to use that punctuation in order to make it make sense. In EasyLanguage, we have the same rules. I mean, you have to use the correct punctuation. And to end every statement in EasyLanguage, we use a semicolon. So the semicolon is used as a separator between statements, and it's mandatory. So that leads me to my next slide here in my PowerPoint. Let me go here. So let's talk about some EasyLanguage elements before we continue. First of all, EasyLanguage is not case sensitive. So you probably saw when I went to the code. Let me go back to the code. Here in the code, you see that I capitalized the word close and I capitalized the word open. It doesn't really matter if you're using capital letters, if you're using lowercase. EasyLanguage doesn't see that. It just sees letters. So if you want to type everything in lowercase, that's fine. If you want to type everything in uppercase, that's up to you. Or if you want to use a combination, that's fine. Also, line returns, spacing, paragraph indents are for readability only. They do not affect the EasyLanguage code. So you can, add a little bit more space so that the code is a little bit more readable, but it doesn't affect the code. EasyLanguage requires the proper use of punctuation. We already established that, and I'm just going to give you a few of the punctuations that are necessary. For example, if you remember, it is mandatory to use a semicolon every time you end a statement. One or more expressions are put together to form a statement, and every statement ends with a semicolon. So let's go back here to my code, and all I need to do here is once I have my calculation going on, all we need to do now is we need to plot the result. This is how the plot statements work. Plot 1. Every plot is numbered. You can have up to 99 different plots. So plot number 1, and in parentheses, what is it that we want to draw? We want to draw the result from value 1. Take a look. Very straightforward, very simple. Again, this is one statement separate from the one above it, and this statement we need to end it with a semicolon. That's our plot statement. Now let's go ahead and verify this. Every document that you create needs to be verified because EasyLanguage is going to do an error check and make sure there's no errors. I'm going to right-click on the code and click on verify. Then we're gonna worry about the styling. Where is the indicator going to go? Is it going to go on top of the candles? What color is it going to be? What style is it? Those are what we call properties of the indicator. And you access those properties by right-clicking on the code and going to properties. A couple things that I'm going to point out here. Cannot go into more detail because we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to go to the scaling tab. And the right axis, that's fine. This is an indicator that's going to go in its own subgraph. The style is going to be a line. I'm just going to make my line a little bit thicker. And the color is going to be red. That's fine. I'm going to click OK. Once I make changes, I right-click and I verify again. Let me go back to TradeStation and put it on. Right here's the chart. I'm going to go to Insert, Indicator. We said that is exclamation, so it's going to be at the very top. And here it is, exclamation real body. I'm not going to format it because it goes right into the chart, so I'm going to uncheck prompt for format. And I click OK. And there it is. That's what the indicator looks like. That is a line that we just created and is measuring the real body. Look at the scale right here on the right-hand side. You see how it goes from positive to negative. When you create indicators like this, it makes a lot of sense to create a reference line right at 0. That's very simple to do. I'm going to go back to the code. I'm going to add a plot number 2, plot 2. And inside parentheses, I'm just going to add the number 0. I'm going to right-click and verify. As soon as you do that, as soon as you add this second plot, which we're just plotting 0 on every single bar, look what happens to my chart. It automatically adds that line. So whenever you make changes to the code, it's very convenient because it automatically applies those changes to the code, and I can see the 0 line. So now I can clearly see whenever the line jumps from positive to negative and from negative to positive. Let's go to our next exercise. Our next exercise is using EasyLanguage functions. It says here we're going to modify the real body indicator to plot a line representing the average of real body over a user-specified number of bars. And we're going to introduce the EasyLanguage Dictionary because I want you guys to look at something. Take a look at my TradeStation. Take a look at that indicator at the bottom. It's very noisy. It's very staticky. It's jumpy. It looks like an EKG. There's no clear direction of the market. So what if we start, smoothing that line by creating an average? Let's go back to my code because that's exactly what I'm going to do. Let me show you where a lot of these functions are going to be stored so that when you get a chance, you can always go there and review them. Right here on the right-hand side of my development environment, you're going to see the dictionary button. Let me resize this so that we can see more of it. Okay, so this is the dictionary. I just hovered over it and it opened up the dictionary. And I'm going to go and open up the EasyLanguage category. We have all these different categories that you have in EasyLanguage, but I want to go all the way to the bottom where it says user functions. But notice that in the list of functions, average is right there. And in the list of functions, when you highlight something, this box tells you a little bit about the function and how it's used. And I want you to look at what's down here. I know the font is really small, but it gives you an example of how the function is used. And if you're able to read that at the bottom right, it says average. And then inside parentheses, you have to supply the parameters of what is being averaged and for how many periods. Very simple to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another plot here that will say the following. Plot 3. And I'm going to open up the parentheses, and this will say average. Notice how average comes up in a different color, and functions in EasyLanguage, they come up in magenta. I'm going to open up the parentheses, and I'm going to average value 1 for a period of 30 bars. We can do any type of number here. Let's do, 30 bars is fine. I'll start with 30 bars and see what happens. So this is my next calculation. I need another parentheses. Why 2 parentheses at the very end? Because we have 1 over here, 2 over here, and we need to close those 2 parentheses. And at the very end, semicolon, which ends the statement. Let me verify this. Right-click, verify. All right. So now we created or modified the real body by adding an average. Let's take a look. Okay, I'm going to change this to 10, only use 10 bars. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the plot value 1. And a way that I do that is you can comment it out by using double /. Whenever you use / like that in the front of any line, notice how it turns it green, meaning that it's just a text annotation. EasyLanguage will not read anything that turns green. It's just a note. But in order for you to make yourself a note, you have to type in 2 double slashes or 2 slashes or // to create a note. Let me go ahead and verify this again. Let me go to properties to make that line thicker. This is plot number 3. Yellow is fine. And the style is a line that's going to be thicker. And once you change the properties, you have to come here and verify again. Let's go ahead and take a look at the chart. And let's go ahead and remove this because it didn't take the styling. Whenever you make any changes to the properties, it doesn't apply them to the indicator that's already applied. Notice that it changed the calculation, but it didn't apply the styling. So I'm going to go back to Insert, Indicator, insert the indicator again, and there it is. That's what my indicator looks like. Now you can see a different calculation of the same idea. We're still, calculating real body, but we added an average. Now, if you look at the yellow line right there at the bottom, it has a sense of direction, because now when you see the candles going to the downside, take a look at what happens right here to my indicator. It just crosses to the negative side. Whenever there's an upside, like over here in the current trading day, you can see how the indicator crosses to the positive side. Let's go ahead and go to our code and see. We're going to go to our PowerPoint and see what's next. Let's go to exercise number 3. Let's create alerts. Alerts are great because it tells you when things are happening, and you can add them to your indicators very easily. And I'm going to show you that right here in this indicator that we created. So take a look. I'm going to add a few more lines, and this is what I'm going to say. You're going to see how easy it is to add an alert. If value 1, which is the calculation happening up here, notice that we're still referencing the variable. If value 1 crosses over 0, then alert. And you can do the other side too. If value 1 crosses under 0, then alert. Keep an eye on the words. They're coming up in blue. It means that they're built-in words to the code. Crosses over and crosses under are already built into the language. So when you use them, EasyLanguage knows exactly what to do. It's looking for that specific time when it crosses over. Now, let me go ahead and verify this. Right-click and verify. The code is verified, meaning that I can go back to my TradeStation. I can double-click on that indicator and then go to alerts to enable the alert. Let's go ahead and do something here and try to find something that is generating an alert. It's going to be difficult, but here it is. Here's an alert. It's generating the alert every single tick. Now, let's go ahead and disable this and say to alert once per bar only. Let me go back to my code because I was expecting the alert not to generate. Oh, okay. Oh, I may know why this is happening. Because value 1 is close minus the open. It's not the average. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add value 2 up here, and I'm going to say that this is the average of value 1 for a period of 10 bars. So instead of using the formula in here inside the plot statement, I'm using it up there in the variable, and this I'll turn to value 2 because we're plotting value 2 as the average. So I'm going to compare value 2 instead of value 1. Value 1 is just a real body calculation. I want to analyze the average. So let me right-click and verify. Let's go back to our TradeStation. And now the alert is not being triggered because it's looking at this yellow line in reference to the 0 line. When it crosses, it's when it generates the alert. Now we can sit here and try to find something that is triggering the alert. It's going to be a little bit difficult. See, right now, this right here is really close to 0, but it actually has to cross in real time so that it generates the alert. There we go. It generated the alert. We get a pop-up. letting us know that it has crossed to the other side. Let me go to our next exercise, exercise number 4. I think we have a total of 7 exercises, and I want you to see what is the potential here. We're going to create a ShowMe that will mark every candle where there's a crossover on that real body indicator. So every time, if you can see this screenshot over here, every time that the line crosses over or under 0, we have a dot. Let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to go back to my development environment, and I'm going to create File, New, and in this case, we're going to create a ShowMe. This will be real body. And I'm going to call this real body AVG just to be a little bit more clear that it's the average. And this is my first ShowMe. I'm going to go back to my previous tab to copy some code. I need to copy these calculations. And this is something you can do between your code. And in my ShowMe, I'm going to right-click and paste it in here. Okay. So this is the difference between an indicator and a ShowMe, is that the ShowMe only plots if the condition is true. So this is what we're going to do. If value 2 crosses over 0, then plot 1, it's going to be at the high. Meaning that we're putting a marker on the high of the bar. That's exactly what a ShowMe does, okay? And we're going to do the other side. If value 2 crosses under 0, then plot 2 is going to be at the low. Let's verify this. Let me go ahead and change the properties for my style. Plot 1, let's make those dots bigger so that we can see them. And the color, plot 1 is a bullish, so I'll make that blue. And plot 2, I'll make that magenta. I'll click OK, right-click on the code, and go to verify. That's it. Let me go back to TradeStation so you can see how this looks. On my chart, I'm going to go to Insert, ShowMe. Here's my ShowMe right there at the top, Real Body AVG, and I'm going to click OK. And take a look. Right here, we have a crossover to the positive side, and we see exactly where the blue little circle is. And as soon as a yellow line crosses to the downside on the negative, it marks the bar. So technically, I could remove this indicator, or maybe not give it so much prominence, because the ShowMe is letting me know where the crossovers are. So does that help me maybe have a better visual of the study and see if it works on those crossovers? Maybe. I can go back in history and, and see certain areas where the crossover was really turns out into a nice trade. For example, over here, we have a bullish signal. We have a very nice uptrend. And here we turn negative, and that would have been a very nice trade. Let's see if we go in history and look at another one. Oh, here's a very long short trade here. It went to the negative side. We have a magenta dot. Here we're getting another alert. Here we have a magenta dot, and you can see how the price went down very nicely. That would have been another winning trade. And I can sit here and look at different scenarios, but ideally, I would want to turn this into a strategy to test it. And that is something that you can do as well with the EasyLanguage. Let me go here to my slide, because we're doing exercise number 5, which is creating a strategy. The strategy, again, will follow the same concept, but in this case, what we're going to do is, if we get a bullish signal, meaning that we cross to the positive side, we're going to go long. And if it goes to the other side, if it goes to negative, then we're going to go and trade it short. Very simple, and I'm going to show you how to set that up in EasyLanguage. We're using the same concept, so we follow the idea through and not confuse you with different technical ideas. Let me go and create a strategy. I'm going to go to File, New. Notice that there's different types of documents here. Now I have to select a strategy. In the strategy, I'm going to go and call this Real Body Average Cross. And I'm going to, the template is going to be none because I want an empty document. I'm going to go back to my indicator and copy the calculation. I don't have to type it over. I'm just going to copy those 2 lines and put them here. It calculates the real body and then it calculates the average. And here, I'm just going to type in the rules of my strategy. They are very similar to the alerts statements, very similar to the ShowMe statements, because that's the condition. If value 2 crosses over 0, then buy next bar at market. I'm just going to use a simple market order, but this is the syntax to generate a trade. I do the other side. If value 2 crosses under 0, then sell short next bar at market. Take a look at all these words are blue. EasyLanguage understands what they are. Buy next bar, when it finds the condition, which is the crossover, it knows what to do. It's going to do a long trade or a short trade based on which direction it crosses. I'm going to right click and I'm going to verify. The beautiful thing about a strategy is that when you put it on a chart, it'll find every single instance where the strategy would have generated a trade. Let's take a look. I'm going to go back here to my TradeStation. And in this chart, I'm going to go to Insert Strategy and scroll to the very top. Here's Real Body AVG Cross. I don't want to format it. I'm just going to put it on the chart. And there it is. Now take a look how it follows every single entry. Notice how we got the ShowMe to plot us a blue dot, and it follows a blue arrow for the strategy. As soon as it knows that it crossed over, it's going to send an order to buy. Over here, notice that we have a red dot, and it's followed by a red arrow because the strategy generates a trade at that precise moment. And I can scroll historically and see every single time that happened. If I want to generate a report based on this, if I had followed this strategy, every time that it would have generated a trade, how much money, what would be the performance here? Let's take a look. I'm going to go to the View menu and click on Strategy Performance Report. That's where you find the performance of the strategy. All right, and here it is. Let me collapse. Okay, definitely this is not a winning strategy. We see that we lost about 46 British pounds. This is using British pounds. You can change it to any of the 2 currencies that make up the pair. But you can see how it generated a profit of 4,200 pounds, but then it generated a loss of 4,200 pounds. So the loss was a bit higher than the winnings, and that's why we have a net of 46 pounds loss. But the idea here is not to develop the strategy. It's just that we took this simple idea, which was the real body, the average crosses of the real body on that 0 line, and every time it crossed, it generated a trade. We tested the idea and saw how the strategy performed historically. Now that you have a strategy, you can test any time frame. So if you turn this into a daily chart instead of a 5-minute, you're going to see how the chart recalculates, and it gives you a different calculation. In this case, we have a bigger loss of about 18,000 British pounds just by switching the interval on the chart. Let's take a look at our PowerPoint to see if we can do another exercise. Let me do exercise number 6. It's a simple exercise. It's just taking one of the built-in indicators in TradeStation and modifying. Sometimes you look at an RSI. The picture that you have here is an RSI. The RSI does not have a smooth average. We just see the raw calculation of the RSI. And sometimes you may want to add an average to an already existing indicator. Let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go to TradeStation. Let me leave this chart open here. I'm just going to open up another one. Let me open up a new workspace, a new chart. All right, here it is. Let me open up the spacing. Let me insert one of the built-in indicators, the RSI. And there it is. Let me make the style a little bit thicker so it's easier on the eyes. Okay, so that's the RSI indicator. You know, it's very noisy, very staticky. What do we want to smooth the RSI value and put it into the indicator? Well, once you have the indicator on the chart, you can right-click on the line or any of its lines and go to Edit Easy Language for RSI. In this case, it's the RSI. But if you right-click on any study, you can access the Easy Language by right-clicking on it. Okay, so it opens up the code of the RSI. Some of these codes are going to be very lengthy, but I'm just going to come on and concentrate on the plot statements because these are the lines that are in the RSI indicator. And all I need to do, so rather than changing the original, go to File. I'm going to save it as, and this will be exclamation my RSI. Okay, let me go back to that tab right here on the top. I'm going to go to my RSI, and I'm just going to add a plot 4. Remember, you can add up to 99 different plots. I'm going to open up the parentheses, type in the word average because I know that that's how I create an average. And what is it that I'm averaging? Well, look at, I'm averaging this line, plot number 1, which is already called RSI value. That's a custom name, and it holds the calculation of that line. So all I need to do is copy that name and paste it over here. That's what I'm averaging. And I'm going to average for, let's do 20 bars. I close the parentheses, close another parentheses for the average function, and then add a semicolon. That's all you need to do. Once I right-click and I verify, that's going to be built into this code. Let me go to Properties to change that average as well. I'm going to go to the style, the grid style, chart style. There we go. We're going to make that a little bit thicker. And cyan is fine. Just click OK, and then right-click and verify. Let me go back to my TradeStation platform. I'm going to remove the one that is currently there. And I'm going to go to Insert Indicator and use the one that I just created, which is exclamation my RSI, and there it is. Take a look. I have the usual RSI calculation, but in this case, I'm adding a line to it. These are all the exercises that well, actually, no, let's do one more. Let's go ahead and open up right here. Radar screen. Okay, and in here, I'm just going to type in some symbols. Apple. Okay, let's do Microsoft. Twitter. We're just going to do a few symbols so that we can have something to... Okay, so let me make the font bigger here. Okay, and we're going to add an indicator here that calculates the real body for these symbols and give us alerts if they're crossing. Because sometimes, you know, looking at a chart is very limiting because that's only one symbol. But creating a study for radar screen allows you to have a study that calculates on a group of symbols. So let me go over here to my development environment. And the way that you create a radar screen indicator is the same way that you create an indicator for charting. So I'm going to go back here to my charting indicator. Notice that the code is already there. And I'm just going to do a couple things. I'm going to go here to Properties, and I'm going to make sure that it has enough data to calculate. So I'm going to, in the General tab, there's a checkbox that says Load additional data for our cumulative calculations, and I'm going to just put in 100 there. What this will do is it'll make sure that the indicator has enough data to calculate. Otherwise, radar screen tries to be as efficient as possible, and it may not load all the data that is needed for the accurate calculation. So I need to turn that on, add 100 bars, click OK, and then I'm going to right click and verify. So all I need to do is come back to TradeStation, go to Insert, Indicator. Notice that exclamation real body is going to be right there. I'm going to add it, move it down to the very end, and click OK. And here is my plots. I have a plot 0, which I'm going to get rid of. I'm going to right click on the header, go to Show Hide Plots, and uncheck it. And I'm going to change the interval of these symbols to daily. So now take a look over here. We have the real body of each one of these bars, the average. So if I want to right click and format the real body for all symbols and enable the alert. So the alert is being monitored. I'm able to sit here through a list of symbols, and as the real body crosses over that line, I will get alerted. So notice how we took an idea from the very basic concept of analyzing the candlestick, determining what the formula was for the real body. Then we plotted that line and we saw that it was very staticky. We thought about adding an average to that line and we smoothed it out. Then we told TradeStation to mark every candle with a ShowMe every time that the real body average crossed over 0 or under 0. And then we turned that into a strategy where every time that it crosses, it generates a trade, and we were able to measure the performance. And here we're adding the same idea, the same indicator, putting it on radar screen and having radar screen monitor tick by tick any of these crossovers. That's a lot of information, I know, and hopefully it was easy to follow. This whole session has been recorded, and the video will be available to anyone that would like to watch it and review it. We have a couple of books that are available on the TradeStation website that are free downloads. We have the EasyLanguage Essentials, and we have the EasyLanguage Functions and Reserved Words Reference. We are working on allowing or putting up some home study guides that we have available for EasyLanguage programmers. So if you're interested in learning EasyLanguage or taking your custom studies to the next level, the best way to do that is by learning the language, and we are going to make these home study guides available for purchase. They're not available right now, but we're working on a solution. So if you're interested, you can always send an email to learning@tradestation.com, and we'll provide you information about the books. All right? Well, this is the end of our class. I'm sorry I went over a few minutes. I just wanted to show you what are the capabilities of learning a little bit of EasyLanguage, and hopefully you can continue your journey of learning this language. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and I hope to see you in a future event at TradeStation. Good night, everyone.